Hello, and thank you for coming to my talk. Thank you for staying this long to listen to me. I'll try to be brief so that we can all go have a beer in half an hour. Okay, my name is Olga Ilukowicz. I'm the narrative designer at Artificer, and also I like mushrooms. I was supposed to say something personable about myself, so that's it. And today I'll be talking about the announcer system on Homicidal All-Stars, our upcoming game. Because it's an upcoming game, I'm going to show you the trailer for it so that we all know what we're talking about. But basically, it's a turn-based tactical combat game with some real-time exploration. And the setting is a brutal TV show similar to Running Man or Smash Bros. And probably some of my colleagues will kill me for saying it's Running Man meets XCOM, but this is how a lot of people describe us. So let me show you the trailer now.
The contestants need to get ready, because here they come. Oh! There's no place for mercy in the arena. They've got the tools and the talent, but do they have the teamwork? Where else can you see this kind of action? Nowhere but on Homicidal All-Stars.
Okay, that's actually half of the trailer, but I only have 30 minutes. So now that you've seen it, you've already heard our announcer, and you're going to hear him a lot today, and also when you play the game, play it. But what is the announcer, or who is the announcer? The reason why I say what is the announcer is because he's from the narrative perspective, he's not really a character, he's more of a tool, because who he is in his real life does not matter to the story at all, but still he is a very important element of the game. Why? Why do we even have an announcer in the first place? Well, when we chose the TV show theme, we felt like that we needed an element that would drive that fantasy home, right? So there's a lot that you can do through visuals, the UI, the story, etc. But we needed something that really would make the game show feel like a game show and highlight the artificial TV nature of what's going on the screen. And also, when we just played the first iterations of the game with the TV show theme, we felt that something was missing. So what we did was, of course, look at our references. And our references include movies such as The Running Man, Death Race 2000, Hunger Games to some degree, maybe not so much, because we were aiming for the 90s, 80s action movie vibe. But still, this was an important reference point still. And what we've noticed is that I'm not going to say that all of the movies with this theme have this kind of element, because someone is going to then raise the question that, oh, this one doesn't. But a lot of them have this kind of character that is a sportscaster or just a journalist type of character who talks to the audience and gives them context for what is going on the screen. And also, from the thematic perspective, also highlights the difference, the contrast between the brutal reality of the contestants who are, fighting for their lives, and the fact that the audience or the show producers see it as entertainment. So this is also an important tool for driving home the narrative themes that we operate on. Right. Another reference that we were looking at was also real-life sports. And then we started to look at games that might have a similar system. And it turns out that sports games actually are a very good reference because, let's see.
An electric atmosphere here tonight as these two legends clash. Ooh, what a punch.
That's how you stop your opponent.
Headlock. Oh!
So as you could see, WWE 2K20 has those sportcasters that are commenting on what the characters do, and by extension, of course, what the player does. And this is what we wanted. The problem when looking at this kind of reference is that we don't have the same budget that 2K games or EA Sports games have. So at this point, we started to worry. Okay, if we see this system in these types of games, are we going to be able to deliver it with a little bit of a lower budget, right? But this is what we ended up with. The video that I'm going to show now is not faked. This is taken straight from our demo, which is on Steam now. Play it. There will be some cuts, but this is just to throw out the boring parts of me thinking what to do. So,
time for the final battle of the night. Will the challengers survive what's in store for them? One thing's for sure, it's gonna be bloody. Devastating. Make things interesting. Preparing for a kill shot. Zoe winds up her Gatling gun. Spraying the arena with ammo does not pay off. And the defenders are joined by a Ronin. Super deadly at close quarters with that razor-sharp sword.
okay. All right. I think I cut the original video for brevity. But as you could see, we have an announcer who, in this iteration, apart from just supporting the fantasy of the brutal TV show, also explains to the viewers, which by extension also means the players, what's going on the screen, puts some context, reacts to the players' input and the result of such input. So you could see that when you spray the whole arena and hit no one, he's going to comment on that. So it gives us this nice kind of reactiveness to the gameplay. And also, well, he kind of replaces the traditional bark system that a lot of games have, probably most of games have. So instead, in our game, instead of having a character say, "Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker," when they shoot someone, we have the announcer saying, "And she makes the kill shot," right? Yeah, so based on the video that you just saw, I can say that we ended up with creating a system that we're, or at least I am, very proud of, and that I feel that works very well for our game. But of course, the road to that end product was very long and bumpy. So the first course of action after we decided to have an announcer in the first place was to decide what he should sound like. And the first idea that we actually implemented in the game was based on a YouTuber called Aussie Man, whom we chose because of his very outrageous and campy style that we felt would complement our outrageous and campy setting very well. Let me show you a clip of first the YouTuber himself, what he sounds like, and then our take on it in the game.
Unfortunately, his robot gets shit mixed into the wall. Seriously, Minotaur has no gadgets. Blacksmith has a hammer. Oh, I take it back. He can fucking electrocute wankers. Blacksmith is now discombobulated and going spastic.
And this is the game.
No one saw that coming, except me. And there's another award sponsored by the Omega Corporation. Looks like our product placement ratio's kicking in high gear. This is more confusing than the time I caught my wife in bed with my twin brother. And there, Tybalt's totally fucking with his enemies' heads.
Right. So some of you listening to this might think, oh, that's pretty cool. It's way cooler than the one I showed before. And some of our colleagues also thought that he was really cool. The problem with this Aussie man inspired announcer was, first of all, that he was very love him or hate him. So some people really enjoyed him and some people really hated him from the start. And even with the people who did like him in the beginning, after playing the game for about 20 minutes with this guy constantly in your ear, he wasn't that cool anymore. So, when you're designing a feature that's going to be very big and very important for selling the setting, you don't want him to fucking irritate your gamers, right? You don't want them to hate him. So, how did we deal with that? Our first idea was actually taken straight out of the WWE playbook, and this is something that you also saw in the clip from the 2K game. But it's also something that actually happens in real WWE commentary. You have two announcers. One of them is this straight guy play-by-play announcer who just calls the stuff. And then you have a color commentator who's going to make some jokes and have some anecdotes and be outrageous probably. And then the play-by-play commentator would kind of interact with him as well, but the play-by-play straight guy would comment for 70% of the time, roughly, and then 30% of the time would be the color commentator. And then that would offset the... you wouldn't get so tired of him because you wouldn't hear him so often. Now I'm going to show you what it was supposed to sound like, but note that this is just a mock-up that we did, it's just a video. It was never implemented in a legit way in the game, although we have a system that supports it, so maybe in the sequel.
Welcome back. I'm Joe Stern, and with me is our colorful commentator from Down Under, Bruce Cockburn.
Thank you, Joe. And bugger me dead if we don't have some fair dinkum action on tap for tonight.
Scarlet hit by a spike trap.
No one saw that coming.
And there's another reward sponsored by the Omega Corporation.
Looks like our product placement ratio's kicking in high gear.
No question, Bruce. Scarlet patches up her teammate.
She's like a homicidal Mother Teresa out there.
Just a bit wide of the mark.
Why? How do you know his name is Mark?
No, I mean, wide of, the target.
Oh, yeah. I knew that.
Okay, so I don't know if you agree. I think this sounds pretty good. The problem is that, again, we do not have the same kind of budget that EA Sports or 2K games have. And when we started to do early estimates of how many lines we might need for this system to work, because there is a lot of back and forth, they are bantering with each other, we came up with a number of over 8,000 lines, voiced lines, which compared to 550 voiced lines in Hard West, which was one of the previous projects our team worked on, that's a big jump, and that's a lot of money for voiceover. And we were not really sure if it would, be worth it. And obviously, from the system's perspective, even though we do have the system in place, there would be a lot of bugs that would probably come out of this that we would have to spend a lot of time polishing. And also the 8,000 estimate is just an early estimate, and you can safely assume that in the production we would find out that we actually need more. So this feature started to look like a risk that could potentially blow up our whole project by blowing up the budget. Then we thought, okay, we like what they sound like together, and we also like the new play-by-play announcer. So why risk having two announcers, one of whom was the problem because he was annoying people, if we can just have the play-by-play announcer on his own? We had some lines by him recorded already for that mock-up, We liked the sound of the guy, and it also didn't hurt that the guy, the actor, Johnny Locasto, he actually has some experience with commenting for WWE and some other wrestling leagues, making his commentary sound very authentic. We made an early test version with that play-by-play announcer going solo, and even in a very simple mock-up, maybe not mock-up, but early implementation of that guy going solo, we liked what it sounded like. So that's what we decided to do. So now that we have the announcer cast, what's the next step? The next step is, of course, identifying what the announcer should even comment on. So this is going to be different in different genres of games. For tactical gameplay, it's going to be this, basically. So I'm not going to talk about scripted lines because that's not really the topic of the speech. But I'll show you some example lines of important events that happen a lot in our gameplay, and what they sound like. So shooting, hit and miss.
Boom! Direct hit! Clean miss on that one.
Right. Melee hit.
Ooh, hitting him where it hurts.
Enemy death.
And the Ronin is down.
Player death.
And down goes Scarlet! Oh my!
And as you'll see, those lines, they have different kinds of energy, because player death is going to be really devastating for the player and also very important. And maybe some stuff like reloading.
He takes a moment to reload.
Don't need that high energy.
She takes an Overwatch position.
And then we have lines that talk about different arena results.
And that's it! The challengers easily defeat their opponents. And it's over! A lot of disappointed fans here tonight as the challengers get their butts handed to them.
That's a game over.
2 in a row for the challengers.
And because we don't only have tactical gameplay, but also some real-time gameplay with traps and loot boxes and puzzles, we also have lines for that.
Ow! Gotta watch out for those tripwires. There's another reward box.
In the beginning, we thought that we might save some money by avoiding talking about specific abilities that are specific for one character. And we had some generic lines for all abilities.
An interesting tactic, mixing things up.
So if you work for us, you probably had a nasty flashback here, because later in the game, when you use a lot of those abilities, you're going to hear that a lot. And even if you have some variety in the lines, it's still going to get, repetitive at some point. So we could just write more generic lines and have 200 of them. But instead we decided to go for 10 for each specific ability, and then it also sounds more natural and more responsive, because he's actually responding to what's going on and not saying, oh, it's interesting.
Wait, which one's the real Tybalt?
So this is one of the characters changing his appearance with an enemy.
Scarlet takes it to her!
Yeah, this is a character tackling an enemy.
Zoe starts preparing a nasty surprise. Wait, where did Phantom go? There's the katana!
Right. So I think this was a good choice to have those specific lines, although in the beginning we were not sure about that. But when I'm talking about specific lines, you don't need to, and you don't want to make all the lines specific, because then your locket is just going to grow exponentially. So what we did is we have some lines that are very generic. So catching some lead, no reference to who caught the lead and who was the deliverer of the lead. And no gender, no reference whether it was the player or the enemy. And then we go down to more specific. So he's down, the gender of the target. She makes the kill shot, the gender of the performer. She finishes him off. This is both genders. Down goes the Ronin, a specific target is named, more holographic trickery from Tybalt, specific performer named, although we only use the names in two cases, which is specific ability that only that character can use, or when someone dies, because that's a big thing. We don't use lines like Zoe kills the Omega Sec, because that would, as I said, make things very expensive. And there are better ways to kind of fake it, right? So how does it work in practice for me? We have this kind of, I like to call it a cascade. So let's say that War Machine, which is the code name for Zoe, shoots the blank, which is the code name for Omega Sec. As I said, we don't have a line that says Zoe kills the Omega Sec or shoots the Omega Sec, but we do have some of the lines, not the whole list, but for example, we do have player female, enemy male. So she shoots him. And then we have a line player female, enemy. So she shoots the defender. And our system, what we do is we assign a chance to play for each of those lines. And our system just goes down. Okay. Oh, there is a line for player female, enemy male. I have a 50% chance to play it. I'll play it, or if I don't, then I go down. Oh, there is a line for player female versus enemy. So I have 25%, for example, to play it. So this way, first of all, you can reuse the lines for different contexts, because player female, enemy male could be Zoe and Omega Sec, but it could be Scarlet and Fume. And you also reduce the chance of things repeating, right? Because if we had always the specific case of Zoe shoots the Omega Sec, then you need a lot of lines for that, because for a player who mains Zoe, it's going to happen a lot, and they will notice that it's repeating. Now, I would say that the key element of the system is the priority system. So you assign a priority to different events, and I'll show you first what would happen if there was no priority or the priority was messed up. So what you're about to witness is Scarlet, who has her last bullet, shoots a drone. The drone is going to explode on death and damage her, and because she only has 1 HP, she is going to die. Now, let's see.
She might want to consider reloading.
Right, so I would say that her being out of bullets was hardly the most important thing that just happened. But how is the program supposed to know that if you have no priority, right? It happened first. She got rid of her bullet first, so it's going to play first. This is the same situation, exactly the same situation, just in a nicer environment with the priority in place. Right, Scarlet is taken out is probably the most important thing that happened, and this is why it has a priority of 10, if I remember correctly. And then, the drone dying has a priority of, let's say, 8. Her being out of bullets has a priority of 4, which actually, in practice, it turned out that it never plays, because there's always something more important, so we just don't announce players being out of bullets anymore, not via announcer. There are other ways that we do announce it. Right. And of course, I forgot to say that, of course, story beats are always the highest priority, because I'm in charge of the system, and I'm the narrative designer, so I say that the story is the most important. In the beginning, we thought, how about we queue stuff, right? It would be nice to have queued lines. For example, she shoots him, but she's also out of bullets, right? It's not a good idea. Don't do it unless you really know what you're doing and you want to invest a lot in making it really good, because I'll show you what it sounded like. This is a very early iteration because it has the old announcer in it.
Straight to Fuckville. That's 2 in a row. Made it look piss easy. 3 down. And Team Scarlet's not even breaking a sweat! Scarlet's out of bullets!
Yeah, she's dead and she's also out of bullets. So queuing in tactical does not work very well. We sometimes use the queue in the real-time portions of the game, but also we do not use it as often as we originally thought we would. Right, and another important part of the system is the cooldowns. And actually, when I talk about cooldowns, there are two levels of cooldowns. There is line level, and there is also event level. I'll show you a video where both of them are messed up.
Hit with the hanging bombs! Hanging bombs to the face! Hit with the hanging bombs! Oh, a deadly mistake! The challenger's night is unexpectedly cut short. Hanging bombs to the face! Oh my, those hanging bombs are killing.
That also shows you why the queue doesn't always work. You want to clear it after someone dies. But we had two mess-ups in the cooldown department here. Because first of all, he didn't need to announce that she hit a hanging bomb 5 times. Even if the lines were different each time, he needs to say it once and then have a cooldown, and maybe in 20 seconds, if the player still runs into hanging bombs, then you can call it again. The second problem is you don't want lines to play, identical lines to play twice in a row or in very close proximity. So when you have hit by the hanging bombs, hit by the hanging bombs twice, it's very noticeable, right? What we do with the cooldowns on line level is actually that if we have 10 lines for hanging bombs, currently in our current iteration, we mix them up. They play, 10 of them play, then we mix them up again, but there is a hack that makes it impossible for the last line that played to be the first in the new queue. And then if you hear the same line after an hour of gameplay or 2 hours of gameplay, you're probably not going to notice it that much unless it's very specific. Right, so the problem with that Aussie man guy was that some of the lines were very jokey. So if someone repeats the same joke twice, you probably are still going to notice that I already heard that joke. If someone says hit by the hanging bombs, you probably already forgot that you heard it read in the same way. We also have this hotness stat for lines that we don't use a lot, but if you have this colorful character, you might want to give a hotness score to the lines that are more specific. Then you can kind of omit them in the new queue for some time, and then they will not play as often. So those were the key system elements that I would say were the most important in the creation of the system. So for us also, because we have both exploration and tactical, we actually have 2 separate documents for tactical announcer and exploration announcer. So if you're doing a real-time game or a tactical turn-based game, it's going to work a little bit differently, and you have to take that into the account. Scripted versus systemic lines. I was not talking about scripted because scripted is really easy. It's just like any other dialogue. And systemic it's basically barks, was where the work actually was. Priority system, as I said, in my opinion, the most important part of the system. Chance to play and that cascade that I showed you. And cooldowns to avoid repetition. Then you can just write less lines, spend less on voiceover, and still not have the game sound repetitive. I didn't put the queue in here because, in my opinion, it turned out to be... I mean, we sometimes use it, but we could use something else for those purposes. And as we imagined it originally, it was not as important. And what if someone still hates the announcer? We thought about that. Well, I didn't because I love him, but some other people thought about it, and we actually have a frequency slider in our settings. So you can set how often he's supposed to comment on your actions. So this doesn't apply to scripted lines where he tells you, oh, this is the new episode. Those have a bool that we can just check, doesn't care about frequency. But all the bark-like lines adhere to that. I really hate that setting, but apparently it was really useful because people who played our demo, some of them asked, can I turn off the announcer? Those in grades. All right, so that was it. I have no more time. I will leave you with the trailer where the announcer is actually shown as a very important asset in our marketing. And I will take probably the questions when we go out for beer.
The arena is quiet for now. But contestants Marty and Scarlett could be walking into an ambush.
Watch an ambush!
They're surrounded!
Wakey, wakey!
Let's rock!
Rise, motherfucker!
You want some too? I got plenty.
Now that's using your head!
Hasta la vista, baby.
Baby! And that's no way to treat a lady! There's no rules and no mercy on Homicidal All-Stars! But wait, who's that entering the arena? It's Ulysses, the reigning champion!
Let's heat things up.
The demo is out on Steam now. Play it, wishlist it, and don't turn off the announcer. Thank you.